Rob Beach from Beach's Motorcycle Adventures, bringing you yet another Beach's Audio Adventures podcast, which is what we do when we're on lockdown. Today, I should be departing Munich to go to Salzburg on the Dolomite Domination. But rather than that, I'm sitting here on Grand Island, New York, enjoying a conversation with someone from the Great White North, that good old Mike Knott. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Robbie. How's it going today?
It's going well. It's a nice sunny day, and later this afternoon, I'm off to head up to the New York safety track for a track day.
Oh, that sounds like a blast. I could cross the border. That would be really appealing.
Yeah, well, I've got Richard Stern's old CBR 600 to play with, and some brand new sticky tires on it, and full tank of gas. So we'll see what New York safety track's all about. Yeah.
Well, I'm just sitting here at the edge of the shore of Lake Superior. It's a little early in the morning, so I poured myself a nice coffee with a little bit of Amarula. Not a little flavoring. But I'm on the shores of Lake Superior because I'm sitting here with my friend Larry Lage. Larry's the owner of Excalibur Motorcycle Works. We thought it'd be fun to get together with Larry and just talk about kind of what's going on in the motorcycle industry from a Canadian perspective, at least. And welcome aboard, Larry.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Excellent. Welcome, Larry. Good to see you here. Thanks for coming out. Or thanks for letting Mike in, I guess, is how it goes, eh?
These are challenging times.
We all have our cross to bear. So, Larry, Excalibur Motorcycle Works. Tell me about it. What do you sell up there?
I sell Kawasaki's, KTM's, Yamahas. I'm still technically a Ural dealer, even though I'm not really a stocking Ural dealer. Yeah, that's primarily what we do. We have another shop kind of attached to the main shop that just does a bit of work on older Harleys and restorations and British bikes and that stuff too. That's kind of like, that's my passion. My dealership side of it is, I mean, it's still fun and it's what I do, but it wouldn't be my choice. So I would choose to work on the older stuff.
Yeah, we all have to deal with the reality of economy, eh?
Well, that, I guess, in order to have old stuff, you at some point have to sell new stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And that's actually how I got into being a dealer, was just to put more pieces of machinery in the pipeline, because there wasn't a lot happening at the time when I became a bike dealer.
Hey, why don't you tell us a bit about that? How did you get started? Because weren't you originally like a truck driver?
I am. I'm a career truck driver and philosopher, which all truck drivers actually are. They can lie about that, but the truth is, yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I sort of kind of needed a job. A friend of mine had bought a bike shop here in Thunder Bay, and I was living in Winnipeg at the time, and I moved back here, and I told him, I'll just come and work for you for a while until I figure out what I want to do with my life. So I wasn't really worried about money. I wasn't worried about any of that. That didn't go so well long term. The biker world in those days was a little bit different than today. It was very exactly what you'd see on TV. It was all about, the party and the whatever. Not a good way to make a living. So I eventually left there and borrowed a whopping $7,000 and started my shop. And
$7,000 to start a motorcycle shop. Yeah, it's roughly about the same now. I think it's about 12.
Yeah. Adjusting for inflation, but it would be difficult to pull that off today, as the factors were so different in those days. There was no internet buying. There was a little bit of mail order, but there wasn't any of the stuff that is available today.
Not just brides.
Yeah, not just brides. No, no. But so that's kind of how it started.
So I'm wondering, Larry, we've talked about this before, about starting a dealership now. Do you think you could still make that happen? It seems like in this day and age of franchises, if you want to start a McDonald's or a Wendy's, whatever, they seem to want so much liquid cash to back yourself up, whereas back in the day it seemed like, I've got $7,000. Can I sell some of your product? You think, is that possible anymore?
I doubt that it's possible. Also, just the way the business is done now, pretty much analyzed and sorted out business 6 ways to Sunday now. The business community is, when you get to any level where you're doing any kind of volume, there's enough analysis in it. Like McDonald's will not allow you to put a franchise in your town if you don't have, the drive-by traffic that justifies it. You can try to buy that franchise. They're still not going to let you do it. Mm. So there are things that are analyzed today that were not analyzed as heavily back then. Then you just threw a dart at the wall and thought, oh man, can I make this work? But now some of the brands that I sell probably would not set up here. Okay, like KTM would struggle in a small market. They always do. They never had a dealer in Winnipeg for 5 or 6 years. Winnipeg's got somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million people if you cover the surrounding area. And they let that go for 5 years. Yeah. So that's one of the problems that I would see.
And then what about even the aftermarket stuff? Do you think, would you get an aftermarket, come on board and say, yeah, we'll sell your stuff?
It would be really difficult. And it would be really difficult for other reasons. One of the reasons is that I've become the dominant player in town with the aftermarket stuff. So when some little guy in the back lane tries to start up, I'll normally get a call from the company and ask, hey, can we set this guy up? Right? So I hate to say that that's the way it is, but that's the way it is.
No, but I think that's standard because everybody has a certain territory, depending on what business you talk about. Some territories are tiny, some are huge.
Yeah. And it's funny because the internet is not affected by that, right? Yeah. So an internet retailer can start anywhere and they can do whatever they want, basically cover any territory. So I would doubt that it would be possible today to do it. You could do a small repair shop, might be able to make a go of it for one guy or maybe two guys just based on billing out labor. Yeah. But to do the dealership thing at any kind of level, basically most of those guys are now business guys or almost like bankers, to have that level of deep pockets, let's say, to be able to go there or to get that level of funding to make it happen. So most dealerships are run that way. They're run very efficiently.
You mentioned the bankers being the primary backers of a dealer. What do you think is happening to the passion in the sport as a result of that?
Oh, yeah. Guys like me are absolute dinosaurs where there's few of us left, and the younger ones that would be up and coming would struggle to get a foothold into this unless they took over an existing dealership or something like that, right? Because the depth of this, like I'm just trying to find words to explain it. So when you start to get into credit lines that are into millions of dollars, passion and that, that love of what you do, I think you're going to hit a wall there at that point. You have to still be a savvy business guy. And to start it today, it would be very difficult. If somebody had huge, deep pockets, and it will happen, you'll see a celebrity or something turn around and create a dealership one day just because they feel like it. And those dealerships tend not to survive for very long as well, right?
Yeah, and especially somebody with a name, right away they're out of the gate running because they've got the name behind them.
Right.
Notoriety. I know I've read about that for years in the car industry. I think we see that in many of the industries. But the car industry, that's definitely a trend where that's the independent dealer or the guy, maybe not independent, but the guy owns one dealership is becoming less and less. Right. Most of them are chains. They'll own 5, 6, 7 dealerships. Mm-hmm. The family-run dealership is certainly becoming pretty rare. But do you think even like sports, so many say, oh, we seem to refer to hockey. Not that I really watch hockey, but I know a bit about it.
Are we Canadian?
So, but look at all the new stadiums. The cheap seats. The cheap seats are bloody expensive, and they put in the box seats. They're just ridiculously expensive. And so it seems to be that, from what I hear from fans, is you go to these games, those box seats are empty half the times because corporations own them, the businesses own them for various reasons. But that's not your true enthusiasts. The enthusiasts are in the other seats, and it's kind of lousy that way. They're the ones who buy the T-shirts and the paraphernalia.
I just want to take it in a little bit different direction for a second. So now that we've been doing business for as long as we have, like we the people, right? I don't know, since the dawn of time.
We the people.
We the people. Yeah, it's my
time machine back in 1970.
Exactly. Most businesses now there are formulas and there are predetermined systems that they use and ways that they run. So there is a cookie cutter system for our industry. There is a cookie cutter system. Obviously, McDonald's sort of created it, right? And they did it. a lot of analysis to get you down the road in this one direction. So if you try to fall outside of that cookie cutter formula, you will meet a lot of resistance from our industry. Right? And this becomes problematic for me because I believe that deals should be done on a handshake and that people are relatively honest, old school people. And that's changed. It's really changed a lot since I started. So yeah, it would be difficult. If you came in with an idea that was slightly off the beam as far as that, like the way I came in, I could never get the support of the OEMs to want to do what I do.
You're slightly off the beam on a good day.
yeah, but again, back to the enthusiast running it, right? I mean, the enthusiast does it for the love of what he's doing. It's less about money and more about just being able to spend your days doing what you want to do.
Right.
All of a sudden now, if I have to adhere to a cookie cutter formula and, oh my God, my entire dealership is just popped out of Lightspeed, their billing system or whatever, that to me killed all the fun in it. That might as well be like producing, hit pop albums with the same producer over and over again because...
Or running a McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's. Harley Davidson is the McDonald's of motorcycles, right? Mm-hmm. Dealerships they're not exactly the same, but the formula is there. The distance from the door to the first thing you see is identical. The display that's sitting there will have the same visual impact in every store. It's mandated by the factory, right? You have to have X amount of pairs of gloves, X distance from the helmets. It's just the way it's done, right? So they figured it out and it works. As long as you want to take the personality out of it. The minute you start bringing somebody like me or Mike or you into it, we have a problem.
Yeah, because we're not the type to follow along.
Right.
Formula.
Right.
we're not. We don't fit in the spreadsheet so much.
Right.
But you don't sell Moto Guzzi, which you used to sell. I think as a business model, you sell it because you think it's a neat brand.
Well, and in a city of 100,000, how would you ever be able to make that happen? And we're talking 100,000, Rob. We're not talking about 100,000 where you are. Okay? Because in a city of 100,000 near you, there's another city of 100,000 an hour away, right? Mm-hmm. Not here.
Right, exactly, yep.
Yeah, we have a geographical area the size of Texas, and it has Northwestern, right, which would be about half the size of Texas, has 200,000 people in it. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't argue for a specific business model that was way off the beam and have it work. It just won't.
It's hard for, if you want to sell BMWs and they're the BMW, they come in and say, okay, here's the deal. You're going to take a dozen of these $35,000 GTLs.
Well, I think that's one of the fundamental problems is that they have moved away from the idea that there are servicing dealers around that may or may not sell a lot of motorcycles, but actually have the ability to maintain the machines that are coming through. I mean, back when I was young, which was around the time the Earth was being formed, there were dealers all over the place that actually had servicing parts, and they may not have any brand new bikes on the floor at all, but they had a pretty well-stocked shop. And you could ride in and on a moment's notice get a tune-up and be gone. And that tune-up was with parts off the shelf. And, they wouldn't necessarily have a new front end or new forks or a new transmission sitting on the shelf. But on the other hand, they had everything that they needed to keep the people that were moving. And they were often co-branded with lawnmower stores, John Deere dealerships, but there was some comfort knowing that there were all these people around the country that were able to take care of your bike and give you a hand if you had a problem while you were on the road. And that's changed quite a bit. That's not to say that the bigger dealers aren't willing to go out of their way to help when they can, but it certainly is a problem up in your area where there's a lot of distance.
Yeah, it certainly is. And one of the things I can tell you is that I've had conversations at length with the company that Mike just mentioned, right? And their suggestion to me was that they would set me up as a dealer, but I had to sell a specific amount of motorcycles. And that specific amount, I won't get into what it was, but at the time was 10 bikes less than the Harley dealer was selling here a year.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that's impossible. It can't happen. So then I proposed to them, well, why don't you just set us up as a service center, considering that I have more of that particular brand of bike broken down in my shop every year than any other brand.
And considering our geographic region, in order to go across Canada, to go around Lake Superior, you have to go through Thunder Bay. Seems like a good place to put a service center, considering what is there, 2,000 kilometers between dealers, roughly?
Yeah. So I would send my guys for service training. I would do all that. I would stock parts. No big deal, right? They thought it was a great idea. See it happening? See it happening? No, it's not going to happen because it fell outside the corporate structure of that company. And one of the things with successful companies run by successful people is they're not up for anybody else's ideas. They've gotten to the size they got to based on their wits and their skill, and they don't really care what you think. So in the end, the idea that we could have some influence on them, I doubt it. Now, having said all that, yes, I have changed components under warranty, wink, okay, for a big motorcycle manufacturer who had no resources in our area, but a very pissed off customer who was losing his mind over the fact that a bike that expensive shouldn't break that new. Okay, especially a component that big.
Yeah, and then to have no support. So sure, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So that's just part of it. So back to the original topic. Avoided the cookie cutter thing all of my life, and I think you have too, and Mike has, and all of us. We were attracted to motorcycling because it wasn't the cookie cutter way to live. It just was this sort of like individual, do what you want to do kind of thing. There was a lot more freedom in it, even riding styles. I mean, there's a lot more freedom in what we all do. So it would be tough. It would be really tough. It would be tough for me to start it today and to approach these OEMs and say, hey guys, I have this idea. I'd like to put a dealership here. They're going to want the exact amount of square footage as the floor plan or as their corporate sort of like dream is. They'd want, even the parts room, what you had to order at one time. I mean, that's changed, but there was a time when you needed to order a specific amount of parts to go along with each bike. That was back in the old days. I know this because I've bought up several old dealerships and there's always cables, headlights, right? Yeah, cables and headlights for some weird reason. Like headlights, the type on a Japanese bike that have the tabs coming manufactured right off the light bulb, right? That stuff, all that, and other weird stuff like levers and handlebars and strange things. And you used to have to do that at one time.
Well, at somewhere along the line, somebody decided that these were the parts that were going to be in demand, and they were a little wrong, but it took them years to get that figured out.
Right. Now there's a guy in an office somewhere who factors the PG&A, right? Parts, garments, accessories, right? All that stuff. That guy has factored that. And there's a formula, and they want you to have a specific amount of that available to the customer at all times when they walk in. They want you to buy a certain amount of it given your bike volume, right? That doesn't work in my area. The other thing that doesn't work is certain areas have, let's say, a strong motocross presence. Well, that's what they sell. That area will not necessarily be able to sell any off-road. Like the EXCs might not sell for that particular dealer. The industry struggles trying to make that work.
It's almost like they're taking the car dealership model and trying to bring it over. Although even at that, so like a 4-wheel drive truck here is, I work with 200 roughly firefighters, 99% of which own a 4-wheel drive truck. Right. Now, if you're down in Toronto, that might only be 50%, the other 50% own a BMW, Audi, or Mercedes car.
Right, and it's exactly that problem. So when the programs are written up, you'll have a program handed to you that will give you a selection of bikes. Well, they want representation for all of these different models, and some of them just do not sell. So what will happen is you'll go into a dealership where you'll see non-current something sitting there over and over and over again, because in order to get the other bikes, he has to order those.
Right.
And I don't know how that works with the other brand you mentioned, but I know with the 3 Japanese and the 1 Austrian brand I sell, it can happen. Yeah. Okay. when you're a little off the beam and you drive your own bus and write your own program, sort of, you can get away with it. Like I do get away with it to a point, but it's not public. I can get away with it, but I can't have this conversation with another dealer because then he'll want to get away with it. And then corporate stuff will come down the ladder at me.
And you can only get away with it when you're big enough to actually drive them a little bit. That's the other problem.
Or the sales, or the proof is in the pudding kind of thing. You get away with it because you move a lot of product. And so it's like, listen, if you give me too many rules, you can kind of take your stuff and go away. And since we're in a small market, where else are they going to take it? There aren't 4 other dealerships that are going to take it on.
Right. Like, I mean, we fluctuate between 50 and 60% market share here. Right. So they don't really say too much.
Right. So what's selling out in Thunder Bay? Cruisers, adventure bikes, sport touring, motocross? What's?
Well, you mean COVID or pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID. Well, yeah, pre-COVID, because COVID is still too hazy for anybody to actually say anything about, I'm afraid. We've been in it for 90 days now. That doesn't make great trend analysis.
It doesn't, but it does make for a funny story, and that's that it's been, like, school here ends roughly the end of June, right? So it's been June 30th for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So every single kid's toy has sold. If it's an air-cooled 50cc to, let's say, 230cc, because that's the range of trail bikes, like, all of those bikes are sold. I don't care what brand they are. Everything. And panicking parents. And now I'm watching parents overpay for used junk off of the Canadian equivalent of Craigslist, right? And they're just can't believe what I'm seeing. But traditionally, that's not the case. Traditionally, kids' air-cooled bikes sell from the end of June on. Parents pick them up from school the last day. They whip into the dealership and pick them with the 4-wheel drive, 6-foot extended cab Northern Ontario car.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they load up a couple of dirt bikes and off they go. And then motocross will traditionally sell from midsummer on. Okay, that's usually how that goes. The new models are released usually in July and August. Okay, so that's kind of how it goes. Japanese cruiser bikes, that market's been questionable for the last few years, to the point where Yamaha basically stepped out of that game. And they hardly have anything in cruiser bikes left over. Kawasaki is in the game with the 650, but the bigger cruiser bikes, like the 1700s, it's questionable as to whether they're ever going to regain that market. I don't know. Obviously, Harley has its struggles right now trying to figure itself out. Polaris has done a good job at latching on to all the people that were pissed off at Harley.
It almost seems like Indian gets a bit of a pass too. Indian can come up with a liquid cooled bike, and their customers will accept it, and it's a great thing. Harley's tried a little bit with it, and their traditional customers are ready to burn them at the stake.
We saw that with Victory. Victory struggled.
Yeah.
Okay, it just didn't work. But because of that, that legacy and that history with Indian, it seems to be working, and it seems to be a really good competitor for Harley right now. So I don't know where that's going to wind up long term. But the Japanese, like Suzuki still has a couple models, Honda still has a couple, but the cruiser ding is gone.
BMW's got a new one, the 1800 twin.
Yeah.
Right, and lucky me, I just happen to have a CL model in the other room here. Have you ever seen one of those things?
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the business 30 years. I'd never seen one until I went and rode it home.
It's fascinating. I've ridden one. I've spent a little bit of time in Germany on one. That was my first cruiser experience, and I realized that Germany, with its corners, and the BMW Cruiser with its rather low ground clearance, don't get along well together with my riding style. So that was interesting. But I do have to say that BMW Cruiser, they had one paint scheme with a black and gold, and that particular machine in that particular color, I find really striking. All the rest of them in any other color, I am not enthused in any way, shape, or form. But the gold and black one is one that I'll stop and look at when I see it and think, I like that. I really do.
You got to look at it from Larry's point of view. Larry likes things generally that are the more the weirder they are almost. So he's got one, of course, with the big batwing fairing and everything. He likes it when you stop and look and go like, what the heck is that?
So you were describing the C model, correct? That's what you rode, the James Bond bike, right? C?
The Cruiser.
Yeah, the C, right. So, but I've got a CL. The CL is, imagine the Cruiser with a 150 wide front tire on it. Okay, that's what's actually on it. And lots of headlights. Okay, and a big fairing. It looks like a Goldwing meets a.
Yeah, with the fairing on it. Yes, I'm familiar with that. It's a lovely design, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's good, and I can see you, and yes, exactly that. Just the way you reacted. But later, Mike will take a picture of it and send it to you, parked next to my classic old Harley.
But so let's talk about the Cruiser just a little. Cruisers a little bit. In that, is it a chicken and egg thing? The Cruiser market's been dead. It seems like for a bunch of years, slowly going downhill. But at the same time, it's kind of like the 600 sport bike market. They don't update any of the bikes. So, and then they say, well, nobody's buying them. Well, are they not buying them because you haven't updated them, or you're not updating because you're not buying them? People, that's generally the car industry works on. I think the 357 cycle, bring on a new model car. After 3 years, freshen it. Mm-hmm. Just new bumpers, BNG, bold new graphics. Mm-hmm. 5 years, do a bigger refresh, maybe update the motor, and 7 years, new model. Whereas most of the Cruisers, what are they on the 10, 20, 50 cycle? I don't know.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. Okay, so most of the guys that were showing up to buy a Japanese Cruiser, sensibly priced, they were either guys who were not ever going to be part of the scene. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Okay, they were either not going to be part of the scene, and they just wanted to go down the road comfortably. A lot of men, especially if they're shorter in the leg, that's all they're looking for. They're not looking for a real handling bike. It's irrelevant to a lot of my customers. They just want to be able to have their feet on the ground and go down the road comfortably with some saddlebags. That's great. But a lot of people who bought those bikes bought them as a stepping stone to the scene.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And we can paint this with a different brush, but that happened a lot. And I sell a lot of used Cruisers to people who don't quite know if they want to spend the $30,000 on the brand. Yeah. Okay, so they will buy, a Shadow or something, get their toes in it, okay, and everything's cool. And it's a good way to decide. New ones, a lot of guys would come in. They would buy, a Vulcan 1500. You could buy that for $12,000 at the time instead of $25,000 for the Heritage Softail, right? So that was the deal.
You sold a ton of them.
I sold a ton of them. So. But we had a problem here, and it was much like the problem when, you're probably too young to remember this, but I'm sure Rob remembers this. Like platform shoes disappeared, Okay, but there was a year or 2 or 3 later, and guys were still wearing them. Still rocking them. Okay, and I remember a statement one time about that. Yeah, platform shoes are gone, but there's kids in the Midwest who haven't bought them yet. Okay, and I remember that, right? So it's the same sort of thing. Here, it would have kept on going. I could have kept on selling those Cruiser bikes for years. So that customer is now gone to those other 2 brands.
How about the adventure bike segment?
That is the segment. Mm-hmm. That is the biggest growing segment, most volume now, I think, in bikes that matter is that. Yeah. And I sell a lot of the crossover adventure bikes, like how it looks like it goes off-road, but it really doesn't.
Like an Austrian version of a GS, kind of looks the same, but not as good.
Well, the R model is great. Anything with a 21-inch front wheel is the real deal. But I'm talking about 19-inch front wheels and 17-inch front wheels. And as soon as you sell those bikes are for pavement. Yeah. Those bikes are not for going out on gravel and anything serious. So that bike is selling fairly well for us. Mm-hmm. And mid-size, especially the mid-size segment, has really exploded. Let's not rule out the fact that there are people running around with Subarus with kayak racks on them who don't kayak. Okay, so let's talk about that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So,
well, but adventure bikes offer a couple of things. They bring some stuff to the table. Forgetting the off-road stuff, they're comfortable. You're sitting up straight. You're comfortable. You've got your feet under you instead of in front of you. And conversely, you've got your feet under you instead of behind you. You're not leaning over forward onto some sport bike handlebars. It's a machine that allegedly will go down a gravel road, but it also goes down the straight roads very comfortably for big distances. And when you get it in the twisties, it's capable. And it's as capable as most riders need it to be. So the adventure bike segment is the one that's going to continue for a while, I think, because you've got either the Harley style or the adventure bike, and that's basically it. The sport machines are getting so specialized and so incredibly over the top that if you're not going to track days, gee whiz, what am I going to do with my 200 horsepower here?
Oh, and you're 100% right. 200 horsepower, unless somebody's been at a track day with 200 horsepower, they'll have no clue understanding how violent this thing actually is and how difficult it is to ride. Just the rotating mass in the corner alone on 1,000cc inline four is unbearable. Right?
For sure. I think if I was going to do a track day, and definitely give me a 600, it's more than capable.
Right. To talk about where Rob was going with this, yeah, absolutely. So the adventure bike seems to tick all the boxes. It seems to be that one category. And whether you buy it in the pavement versions with the 17-inch front wheels, those bikes, that's fine. They will do the job, and they do the job really well. Generally, they're already either fitted with or they're ready to accept luggage in some way, shape, or form. All the other cool things like, hot grips and just the stuff that we really like. Adjustable windshields, at least to a point. So that is kind of the direction it's going in. Midsize is doing really well. We were waiting for the Tenere to show up, but or should we say it differently? Is it Tenere? Is it, we wrestle with that too.
I know what you're talking about, so you must have pronounced it correctly the first time, right?
Right. The Yamaha one, that one. Okay. So we're waiting for that one to show up. But in the meantime, that 790 KTM has done really, really well. I've ridden the bike that you like in Europe several times, the 700, and great. The bike's fine.
Yeah.
In fact, we own one of those too.
I think you do. But I think so because technology, a lot of what makes these bikes better is the technology, right? So back in the day, if you wanted more of that brand of bike, what were you riding? You're riding a KLR 650 or the like. That was your adventure bike, and they're not a great bike to ride long distance. So when we're talking about technology, you're both in the same boat here. Rob, you have to kind of train your customers quickly how to use these bikes, and Larry, you have to train not only your customers, but your mechanics have to know how complex are these bikes getting.
They're getting extremely complex, and I don't have an issue with that because there is a customer who wants that. There's a customer who wants every single piece of technology that you can pile on that little two-wheeled machine. But there's another customer, more like me, who wants the bike to be a little more basic and that is never going to use all of those technological sort of features on the bike, right? So the choices are being limited right now. And that's a bit of a problem that it all seems to be going one way. So I find that most of what fails now on modern motorcycles are these advanced, high-level pieces of technology. Like we've got it to the point where it works, and it works when they're new, right? And the JD Power initial quality, all that stuff, it's great. It works when it's new, but that's where you're going to get your failures. Plus, I struggle a little bit with actually riding these bikes because if you wind up, I don't know if you've ever had it happen, Rob, but I have actually pulled up to a jungle shack, had somebody peel a tarp off a 45-gallon drum, stick a hose in there, suck a gallon into a milk jug, and hand it to me. Okay? So this is a problem.
Potential problem.
Well, anyways, if you had your old air-cooled GS with carburetors back then, that would work. So that's the downside to this. The upside to it is that we have bikes now that have hill hold, and they have, quick shifters, and they have all of these things. Anything you could imagine in a motorcycle now exists in the adventure segment. like Rob said, because adventure bikes handle pretty much like sport bikes, especially the 17, 19 front wheel bikes.
Especially at the lower speed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they handle pretty much like sport bikes. They have sport bike brakes, sport bike forks, sport bike everything, really, except for the ergonomics. They have very friendly feet underneath you, not super cramped, handlebars in a sensible position. Those bikes are great to ride. So that is probably going to be, I agree with Rob. That's probably going to be it. There's going to be the adventure segment seems to be the one that's going to stay with us, and at least for now. And the cruiser market has sort of gone over to the two American brands, and that's kind of where it's at.
You know, when we talk about technology, sometimes I think we underappreciate it. Certainly there's a lot of stuff out there, like you said, the hill hold kind of nonsense stuff. But maybe I think sometimes we underappreciate how much it's working in the background. And if you took it away, I remember my father's saying one time about tilt steering. You know those cars with tilt steering, but why do I never use a tilt steering? And you think about it, how often do you adjust your steering wheel? Most people, they just leave it in place. But I said, that's because you've adjusted it to where you like it. When was the last time you drove a car without tilt steering? Because if you do, you get an old truck or something, the steering wheel is practically in your lap. And so that's something simple. It's like, well, who needs this? I never adjust it. No, because you put it where you like it.
Right. Yeah. With the increase in performance that we're finding with modern motorcycles, most riders, with the training that they have, could never ride one if it wasn't absolutely choked down with electronics, with traction control, and not so much the ABS. I think ABS is a brilliant idea, but traction control and et cetera, et cetera. If you're riding even 100 horsepower motorcycle reasonably aggressively, you can certainly squirt the back end out from under you really easily when you're leaned over. And 200 horsepower, that's twice of what Grand Prix bikes had 20 years ago. So, and back then there were only 45 people in the world that could ride them quickly. And now we are selling them in the shops in Thunder Bay.
Well, my favorite picture is the Alpine Star ad with Mick Doohan on the old 500 Honda crossed up in the corner. You know the picture I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got it sliding. The bike's pretty upright, and he's got it sliding. And that, like without those aids, absolutely that would be happening everywhere with everything. I don't know about BMW's version, but the KTM Adventure 1290 has 160 horsepower. That would have been a super bike in the early days of World Superbike. Oh my God! Like I'm talking about the modern version of World Superbike, right? Yeah. That would have been more than one of the Ducati factory bikes would have had for horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When Harley had that VR, you remember that thing? I mean, that thing was like 120 horsepower or something, and Duhamel was chasing those guys around with it, right? So we've got a ton of horsepower. You definitely need those electronic aids to contain it, but I guess what I struggle with from the dealership perspective is that the only failures we get now are pretty much on some of those systems. I could not tell you the last time we rebuilt the transmission. You know what I mean? Like, have we changed a clutch on anything in the last 10 years? Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's just because in Thunder Bay you get on the road and you ride it straight. So you've shifted it 3 times, and basically you go to the next gas station, downshift it 3 times, pull in and get gas, and turn around and you have 6 shifts going home too.
And that's funny, but point being that
but that hasn't changed.
No.
Back in the day, right, the parts were failing.
Right, those parts used to fail. Bikes are so good now. The mechanical aspects of a motorcycle are so refined, and they're so good, and they're so well engineered. Everything's just so well made. But the electronics, for some reason, that's still the Achilles heel of all this, and it will be your little annoying failure when the guy's on his trip to Alaska. It'll be that. So once we get that a little more dialed in, and I always there's a term I love, and it's life on life's terms, right? So this is what we're given now. We have to deal with this and adapt to this, and as dealers and riders, we are not going to be able to buy bikes without traction control anymore. We're not going to be able to buy bikes without ABS. That's just not going to happen. So everyone needs to just understand that that's the direction we're going.
Here's a question. The internet, is that good for business or bad? And again, for both you guys, because you both are dealing with what are some negatives and positives, I guess? How is it affecting?
From a retail standpoint, the internet in information presentation is great. I can sit back here and find who's making what clothes throughout the world, what kind of riding gear, and find something that I really like. And then I can wander in and beat on Larry and say, hey, I really want to get one of these. The problem is that, at least in America, the distributors, the parts and accessory distributors, are also running retail websites and literally undercutting the dealers at times. And it's a huge problem when I can go to a site that has everything I need for motorcycling and get what I want from it, and it's actually the distributor, and they're basically pushing this stuff out on a retail level. It makes it really tough for my local dealer to continue to do business when he can't get those sales. That's my take on it from a retail standpoint.
Very interesting point. But there's some interesting stuff happening. I don't know about in the US, but on the Canadian side, one of our big distributors has solved this conundrum. One of our distributors will actually sell parts retail on the internet, and you have to, as a consumer, choose your nearest servicing dealer. Like, who will service you if there's a warranty issue or whatever, right? The minute you choose that dealer, the profit from that sale goes to the dealer. It's a beautiful system. Now,
so really. So in essence, the only thing that is happening is the marketing side of things, and the distribution side of things is taken from your hands. But in effect, the customer is still your customer. That works for everybody.
And they're almost voting. So if you're not a good dealer, they're probably not going to pick you. I like that dealer better, even if I don't have to go there.
Right. Well, they give you a choice of the dealers in the territory, right? So in this case, you have 3 to choose from. Let's say in my territory. Well, I'm the bigger of them. I'll get recognized most of the time. They'll pick us. But we do have to deal with problems. So if your helmet doesn't fit, or if you're whatever, if a component fails, you come to see us. Now, you have a choice of how they do it. This is the funniest part, and I hope that if there are any internet shoppers out there from Canada, they hear this. Okay, so if you buy from that particular company, you have a choice of having it shipped to your house. So it's full retail, okay? It's full MSRP plus shipping to your house. You can have it shipped to my shop, full retail, no shipping. Okay, those are your 2 choices, right? But if you walk in and you buy it off us, we'll just cut you 10 points off the retail if we know you anyway. So you're getting a better deal. You can call it into our shop and we'll bring it in for you. So that supplier has always been just great to work with. And our volume with them has increased like tenfold since I started. But there's now another one who's following suit. So the Canadian market is going in this direction. So the next biggest supplier is now doing it. I don't know whether the giant Parts Unlimited kind of those guys, if they would ever do that. It's interesting. They don't have a Canadian retailer that I know of online, but in the States, Dennis Kirk is can we name drop here? Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, Dennis Kirk seems to be the retail arm of Parts Unlimited. Now, I don't know about the other guys. Okay, I just happen to know that they are, and only because I knew somebody who worked in the system, and they will buy from outside sources as well to make it look like they're not, but they definitely are. So you don't just get one product line with them. That's massive. Like in Minnesota, I mean, that's massive to the point where a lot of people in our area used to buy strictly from them at one time until the Canadian retailers got into it, right?
In your case, they need you to be a healthy dealership because you need to sell bikes so they can sell parts.
Right. Well, they figured it out, but they are a breath of fresh air in the industry. So I don't know how this would play out down in the U.S. market or the world market. I'm not actually sure. I'd like to see it go on a little bit longer here. Canada seems to be a bit of a test market. We're 10% of your size. So they will often try things here, and then you guys, they'll move it into like a larger customer base. So I don't know. Let's see how that all goes. But as far as the rest of it goes, is the internet good or bad? It's here and we have to deal with it. So most dealerships are running from it. They're either running from it the other way. So they put all their stuff on at prices that are extremely high. You walk in, you look at that Chewy or Rye helmet for, $600, freak out, walk out, try it on, go buy it on the internet. Right?
Where's this $600 Rye at high price?
Well, I'm talking US here, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, because Rob's in the States, right? Okay, yeah. So that type of thing. And this adversarial, let's not go to the dealership because the brake pads are too much than the internet. That type of thing happens. Yeah. And then you have other dealerships that have embraced the internet wholeheartedly, created small subsidiaries, or you can buy it off of their website online. I'm not sure how that works because I don't know why I would choose that instead of like a Revzilla or something. That doesn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. And then you've got what I'm doing, and a lot of dealers are doing this. We go head to head with these internet stores, and our policy on tires is simple. We don't price tires anymore. We just go to their website and go $5 less and sell it for that. Mm-hmm. And we've about had it with the fluctuation of it all. It doesn't have to happen. So we'll do it with jackets. You want to come and see me for a helmet or a jacket or a pair of boots. Like my CD boots are, $5 less than they are at that website. And that's just the way we're doing it. But how do you train someone to do that? Can you take the time to do that? It would be difficult in a giant dealership to make that work. But
you've got CD boots in stock, right?
I do.
And so therein is the real crushing crux for the dealers. You are putting your money on the shelves. It's not sitting in your bank account anymore. And yet they're driving the price completely.
Yeah, there's this business model where you have to make a specified margin on everything, right? Mm. And we've convinced ourselves that that's necessary and we can't survive without it. And if you went to your bank with a business proposal and you didn't have that specified margin in there, they would not get involved with you. The truth of it is that if you're a little more efficient and a little more, think a little out of the box, you can make it work. This is hugely debated at dealer meetings. Trust me. Dealers it's all about money. It comes down to money.
Sure. Everybody's trying to make a living.
Right. But if you're that dealer, then that adversarial relationship with the customer is going to be there because eventually you're going to make that mistake. It's that one time that you overcharge the guy for something. Well, however that works. I never wanted to do that. I wanted to be able to run my dealership the way I want, go in, have some good working relationship with the local community, be able to sleep at night. So I never thought that model needed to be there. And so you can do it if you do enough volume. And this is the key. You have to have a big enough customer base to do enough volume to be able to compete with the internet guys. It's a little tricky. Back to the question that you asked me earlier was, could you do this today? No, because a young guy starting one of these shops can't buy deep enough to get into that deal. His purchasing from one of the wholesalers, his purchasing tires would be equal. The dollar value he's paying is equal to what the internet supplier is selling it for to the retail public.
Exactly, and that's the problem right there. Right. We've got a situation like that with a fellow here on the island he used to be a gas dealer, good guy, good mechanic, enthusiastic rider. But he's got exactly that. He calls and orders a part, and that part is sold to him from the distributor at the same price that they're advertising it to me as a retail customer through their retail arm. And that makes it impossible for him.
Absolutely. And as a dealer, he has two choices. He can just do that. He can go down that road and just become a service shop and sell you service and charge you whatever he has to live. And that means that every moment that he's turning wrenches on your machine, he has to bill you for that. Okay, that's one way to do it. And absolutely, you can survive on that probably if you were small enough. The other way to do it when you're a dealership and you're selling machinery and you're selling units is that you now have to add fees and upcharges to the motorcycle in order to make it profitable, in order to make it work. So if that's the direction that the industry chooses to go in, and it looks like they are getting worse, they're now advertising on some models, on some brands, they're advertising a shipping fee or an admin fee or a prep fee that's being added right at where the price is, right? So if that's the direction that the industry chooses to go in, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to go much farther in this. I'm about as old as you are, so I've about had enough. But somebody stepping in now will have to be their business model in order to make a go of it if the consumer continues to buy everything online. So chicken and egg, how do you stop this? It's called the race to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we're headed, right? So I don't know.
Well, as people, we're pretty much always are our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
In that you're tired of sitting on a plane being crammed in there, but at the same time, most people, if you're looking at two flights and one's $10 cheaper, most people take the $10 cheaper one. The race to the bottom, and it's like, oh, this is bullshit. Oh, why am I so crammed in here? Well, because they sell business class and premium economy and stuff like that, but you don't want to pay for it.
You're 100% right, Mike. So how do we stop this? Well, we like to think that we're all part of a community and that we're all ethical in what we do and that we're, morally good people, right? This is what we like to think, right? Everyone wants to think that way about themselves. And that illusion is fantastic until you ever work in retail. And then once you've worked in retail, you will see a side of human beings that will blow your mind. Okay. So yeah, I don't know if there's a simple answer. Maybe talking about it, maybe that's part of it. Maybe go down to your local dealer the next time you need an item, and rather than mystery shopping them or internet shopping them and trying on their helmet, explain to the guy what it's worth on Revzilla or Dennis Kirk and look him in the eye and say, I'd like to buy this from you, but this is, 15% less on Revzilla. Can we have a conversation about it? That's what I'd like. Okay, I'd like to see that. And we do have that conversation, but often it's initiated by me. So one of my young staff, are they going to do that? It's tricky. It's very tricky because you also don't want to offend anybody.
I know I don't.
Except for you.
It just works out that way.
And then there's Mike. So to leap away from all of that, since we actually haven't figured it out other than your observation that it's here and it's not going away. That pretty much sums it up. Whether it's good or bad makes no matter. Here it is, and we're going to deal with it. But what is happening, at least here in the States, and I suspect in Canada as well, is the shrinking of the new rider pool, the lack of new people getting into the sport. From the standpoint of passion and enthusiasm, you got into this sport, and I did, and Mike did, because of that. Not because my buddy did, but because, hey, that looks really cool. I want to go do that. That's something different. What kind of things are you doing from a shop standpoint to keep people enthused, to create a sense of community, and more importantly, to get new riders into the fold?
What I try and do is I try and spend enough time with the customer in the analysis of what they're going to ride to give them what makes sense and to keep them on the bike as much as possible. So the person that self-serves his own information and does the research, okay, those people often research themselves into the wrong machine. Mm-hmm. I've had 260-pound guys, 6'3", well-educated, with some form of degree in something, show up at my shop and say, well, I've done the research and I've concluded that I need a 300 Mini. Wow. I guess if you were 16, you might, but anybody who's a little older and can afford reasonable insurance shouldn't be doing that. That guy's experience will be so crappy riding that tiny little bike with his giant physical body. So this is where I get involved. And again, this is just my perspective. I don't know what other dealers do specifically, but I will try and move that person into a motorcycle that will give them the most for their money, the most time in the saddle, the longest run between that and flipping into the next bike. Otherwise, we have to talk about it as that little bike you're buying is a training tool. And when we're all clear about that, I've actually negotiated deals on used bikes. I rarely do it on new, but I will do it on used. Well, where I will fully refund you the price of that used bike that you bought towards your big bike once you're ready. So this is one of the things that I do. And again, just trying to get people into the right bike. Often people will buy bikes for artistic reasons. And those are really bad reasons to buy a motorcycle. Art could enter into it to a point, but if art becomes more important than function,
it should be your second or third bike. That's the artsy bike.
Yeah, and you can honestly get there, but we've had someone pass on a specific brand because it wasn't the right shade of blue. Okay, now it was the exact bike they had to buy, but it was the wrong shade of blue, and that
didn't match my eyes.
Yeah, that's not a conversation that you can rationally have in a room with me and Mike there together. My head pops off, or all of those other things. So back to your question, I try and work with them as much as possible. We have actually painted bikes the right shade of blue. We've done that, brand new ones, But
the only problem with that is, and that's great you're doing that, but they're in your dealership, so they're already interested. I think what your dealership is being really good at, some of the other ones more so or less, is sponsoring those events, sponsoring that racing. Is that hopefully pulls them in the dealership, and then you can talk them into whatever. How many people do we all know that have children that the children, before when we were young, when we were 16, we couldn't wait to get our driver's license. How many people do we know of who have children and they're 18 and they still don't have a driver's license? And so it's that end of it. How do you get them? You get them in a dirt bike. How do you get that passion so they want to ride something? And I think it's more for, say, the racing events. So if you can get someone to a racing event and go, wow, this looks really neat, maybe I'll try it. And I don't think there's enough involvement in car dealerships, motorcycle dealerships to get that going.
No, I think you're absolutely right. One of the biggest problems seems to be there's an ambivalence now to that freedom that we needed, right? Mm-hmm. When you or I or Rob were young guys, we couldn't wait to have that independence and that freedom, and the motorcycle gave us that, right? And now we're seeing a little more so with urban kids as opposed to country kids. Country kids tend to still be those kids who are climbing over the wall to get their license when they turn 16 because they live kind of far out and they need to get in. But urban kids, there's a lot of that I see in my store where the parent is actually driving the bus here and the kid, is being taken to the motorcycle, not because the kid wants the motorcycle, but because, this would be something fun for him to do.
Speaking of making my head hurt.
Yeah. But you see what I mean, right? Like you remember being a kid, we would like be bouncing up and down in the station wagon, right? Yeah. To go into the dealership to look at a bike because.
So here's I think the crux of the problem is that because the liberal parents are too nice, you got to be more of a dick to your kids, make them want the freedom.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say in that. But
I'm not sure that's the right track, Mike.
Listen, we tried your way. You see how it's turning out. Let's go back to my way.
But with kids,
how did it work with your kids, Mike?
We're still working on it.
They're at pet school right now.
Yeah.
So we try to get them onto bikes when they're young. Here's another one for you. Okay. So parents will come in and they're looking for a toy for the kid. Okay. So ATV or motorcycle, right? Wow. This is a heck of a debate. Yeah. I can win dad all day long. No problem. Dad's all about the bike. Okay. Put the kid on a bike, put the kid on a bike. Mom sees four wheels, sees little Johnny as safe, right? Okay. By the time we get done with that discussion, the question is always this. Could you tell me the last time you heard about like a tween-age kid or younger getting killed on a dirt bike? And they look at me stunned because they don't have an answer. Because I don't know about where you live, but in our part of the country, like unless you pulled out in the middle of a freeway, I don't have a story of a kid getting killed on a dirt bike.
Right, yeah.
But on an ATV, about every couple of years around here, there's another crushed 12-year-old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we win that one instantly as soon as we bring that up. In fact, we've had emergency room nurses and ICU nurses come in And they realize it as soon as we say it. So yeah, you're right. I don't know of a story. So then that starts the kid on the path of a motorcycle as opposed to an ATV.
Or dirt bike. 2 wheels instead
Well,
of 4.
2 wheels instead of 4, because that ability to ride, okay, later on in life will translate into a better car driver, possibly better sort of sense of how things work, motion and sliding stuff around, all that you learn from a motorcycle, right? So we think we turn them into better drivers by doing this. And that works. So we put the kid on those little bikes. Generally, those kids will stay on those bikes all the way through as their toy of preference. Mm-hmm. And they will often stay on the original brand that we put them on. Okay, that's weird too, right? But true.
No, really.
Yeah.
That's, again, more the industry. Read stories that's Coca-Cola loves getting into schools and sponsoring whatever events, because if they get the kids drinking Coke or Pepsi or whatever it is, nostalgia is such a huge driver of the choices we make. So if you can get someone drinking Pepsi when they're 10, 12, they'll probably drink it their whole life. Similar thing, if you get them on a Yamaha when they're 12, they'll think that's the greatest thing and they prefer that brand.
I have a friend who runs a fair-sized company here in town, right? And he's got, he's fairly successful at what he does. And so he really likes KTMs, but he can't buy one, okay? Because when he was a kid, his dad put him on a Honda. So he will actually go down to the Honda dealer and pay full retail for his dirt bikes. And he will buy 2 a year, maybe whatever, and he'll put $3,000 worth of accessories on each one. He'll come to my store and buy the accessories. Okay. I've actually flown him to a KTM dealer meeting with me, okay, had him ride all the cool bikes, and he gets to meet all the guys like Dungy and everybody and whatever, right back then. And he's like, I can't do it, right? Like, what do you mean? And he's like, I just can't. So he's got a fleet of restored Hondas. And I one day I said to him, can I have the kid at least? And he's like, yeah, you can have the kid. So he'll buy KTMs for his kid, but he can only ever buy that original brand for himself. That's funny. Pretty funny. And I'm not so off that myself, okay? Like, I still ride old Harleys and stuff, right? Now, it's I couldn't explain that to you, and maybe you guys can have fun with that. But obviously, you wear the BMW underwear, right? You rode you drank the Kool-Aid, right? Okay, so you would know it. Oh, I don't know about that. But you guys carry on with that for a minute.
So, Larry, there's a lot of stuff that we've talked about and covered, and it's really interesting because our perspective, Mike's and mine, of course, is of the client or the customer or the rider rather than the retailer and the dealer. So you've certainly been able to shed some light on a few different things for us, and I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Rob. If I could, that part of it, I could end that part of it with one thing, is that as people are racing to the bottom in this, dollars and cents nonsense that we're living in, they could consider the fact that most dealers are actually just people, and they have to survive and earn a living. And if you've got a dealer in your area who's an enthusiast and they will support the sport and they will do that with you, support that dealer. Try as hard as you can. And that's the best I can leave you with on that.
So, hey, Mike, do you have, you've got lightning statements. Do you have any lightning questions?
Let's see if they're different.
Lightning. Okay, lightning round, Larry. Mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Do you have a favorite motorcycle book or movie?
Probably Easy Rider.
Full face helmet or 3/4?
Full face for the high speed stuff.
Dirt or ice?
Ice.
Thai food or Indian?
Indian.
Do you follow an adventure tour or anything on YouTube?
Just you guys.
Good on you.
Dealer meeting or family reunion?
KTM dealer meeting.
MotoGP or World Superbike?
World Superbike.
Burger or pizza?
Burger.
Is it okay to put pineapple on a pizza?
Yes.
Ginger or Marianne?
Marianne. For the long run.
A rye or shoey?
A rye.
Been great having you on. Till the next time.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Larry. Hey, Mike, next week we've got Jane Schulte from the BMW RA Club coming to talk to us about all kinds of things, particularly about motorcycling in the world of COVID viruses.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I met her one time. I doubt she'll remember me, but that's okay. Sounds like a blast.
Go well, have fun, and keep your face covered.
Can't wait for you to show me that strap on. Back protector.
Back protector.
Back protector.
Oh, I can't believe you missed that. You've been away from him for so long that you've forgotten how he actually is.